I married a monster. There's no two ways about that. The victim, what you lose in the end is, for a long time, it's everything. But it doesn't have to be forever. Making that call was the best thing I ever did. Yeah, it was amazing.
Welcome to today's high-risk meeting. Today we have 6 cases that we need updates on and 1 new case to discuss.
These guys have been married for 10 years. There's been constant violence throughout the relationship.
I'm Jill and I'm the Services Director at Shine. My job is pulling all the services together so that Shine can make homes violence-free. This is our 20th anniversary this year, and it started because there was a need for a helpline in Auckland City. And then in 1995 the Domestic Violence Act came out, and we got some funding from the Auckland Hospital to do a call-out service so that when the women called the police and there was an arrest, or when someone was admitted to hospital that had been assaulted, that we would go and talk to them within an hour of that incident happening, so that we can be right there to give the help that people need on the spot.
As my daughter got older, I wanted her to know her father, and when she was about 5 years old, I managed to get back in contact with him. So I moved back in with him.
A few weeks after I arrived, I found a glass pipe in his pocket.
So it turned out he was addicted to pee.
We tried to stay together and keep our problems, you know, inside our own walls. He made a lot of promises that he didn't keep. I tried to be optimistic. I tried to believe that he could overcome it. I stood by the man I loved and the father of my daughter. His addiction only got worse. By that stage, he was getting verbally and emotionally abusive. He made me and Jamie feel really insecure several times because of his outbursts of rage that he had. As time went on, his behaviour just got more and more unusual.
He was really out of control. He was aggressive, he was violent, he was paranoid. He'd accused me of having affairs and stealing his money. Jamie was really affected by it. She was really scared, and she was really protective of me. She just didn't want to leave me alone. She didn't want to go to school if I was there alone with him.
When they started fighting, Mum used to send me to my room. I could still hear Dad throwing things around and yelling at Mum. I just wish I could get him to stop. Dad used to say really bad stuff to me and Mum.
Rick had no respect towards Jamie, the way he treated her. If he thought that she wasn't doing things his way, he called her names, he mistreated her pets. He slapped and pushed me on several occasions. He humiliated me. Our relationship just kept deteriorating. He held his fist up to my face and threatened to kill me. I knew it wasn't safe to stay.
So we had to leave, we had to get out and escape somehow, and we had to pack as secretly as possible. A couple of nights before I was going to actually go, he assaulted me. So we ran to the neighbour's place, and that's when the police were called and he was arrested. And it was after that that I got my first call from Shine.
The arrest by the police is the starting point for our service most times. 90% of our victims are women. So when an arrest happens, the police immediately call Shine, and one of our advocates will go straight out to that address within an hour of the call and sit down with the person who's been assaulted and have a talk with her about what her risk is, what she's frightened of, what she'd like to do. We give her information about what will happen at court the next day, and we make a brief safety plan with her for the next 24 hours.
One of Shine's services is to advise women on how to obtain a protection order and provide ongoing support through the process.
When someone needs a protection order, they just can go to a family law specialist and they'll help them write up the affidavit that says, this is what happened to me. People can do it for themselves, but it's really hard to get the wording exactly right so it meets the needs of getting a protection order. So usually we recommend that women use a lawyer, and then it goes before a judge and he reads it, and he then decides, he or she decides whether they think that protection order should be given. One of the big problems with protection orders is that sometimes they're given on notice, which means that they're not active immediately. When she applies for a protection order, it needs to be granted immediately that day to be useful. The offender's aware that she's actually taking action, and so the power and control has to become greater to keep her under control.
Shine talked me through the protection order. They told me what it was and how to get it. So I talked to my friend's lawyer and we went ahead with getting the protection order. But it took about a year to go through the courts, and in the meantime I had a temporary protection order, but I just still didn't feel safe because the whole time I was getting threats and things in my letterbox. It just never stopped.
He never completed the program, and at the moment he's pleading not guilty as far as I know. My name's Aaron Steedman. I'm the coordinator for the Men's Stopping Violence program at Shine. I've been involved in delivering men's programs for 8 years, and I didn't end up in this work by accident. I'd had an anger problem all my life. I chose to voluntarily enter program myself about 9 years ago because I had become physically abusive with my partner on a couple of occasions. I always introduce myself and tell men about my history, and that's the first thing that happens when they meet me, because I want them to see that we have a picture of a typical offender in New Zealand being Jake the Muss, you know, and actually he's not. He's all kinds of men. About 40% of our referrals come through the Family Violence Court. That's where there's been an arrest made for someone assaulting their partner. He's appeared in court, and then the judges often referred him on to a program like ours. Yep. Typically, about 80% of men that walk through the door, they've all been victims of abuse when they were younger. They've either witnessed or been directly involved with being beaten or hurt, or seeing mum being beaten and hurt.
My husband was very abusive, not physically, but it was what was said. I think underneath it all, very, very successful business person. He always gets what he wants. A lot of standover tactics, a lot of bullying. When the children were very young, I wasn't coping at all. He would just blow up. It was for little or no reason at all. And towards the end, it was even just a look. You start questioning yourself, you start questioning your own sanity. You know, I'm not coping, I'm not a good mother, I can't even function, I can't even look after my children. They were immaculate, they were, you know, but I just felt that I was totally incompetent.
Most of us think violence is the violence we see on TV, but actually it incorporates all sorts of actions and behaviours. A tool that we use a lot in this work is the power and control wheel, and these are what we call tactics or behaviours that you commit through wanting to establish power and control over somebody. There's actually no physical violence going on in there, but it's pretty easy for men to see, actually, yeah, I've been doing that behaviour, and I do some of this behaviour, and I do this behaviour.
Often when women first ring here and I'm talking with them, they'll say, do you think I'm crazy? So it's constantly undermining her and her role, which totally erodes her self-esteem, her belief in herself.
As time goes by, there were some really disturbing things. He was always listening. Phone calls that I'd had that were repeated back to me when I was the only one at home. And you start watching everything you do. You become very paranoid. If there was an extra coffee cup, I'd be asked who was there. He would continuously come home or phone me to find out where I was, and then after a while I'd find myself at a stop sign and he'd be right there. It was as if you were in a really, really scary movie. I lost an awful lot of weight, I wasn't functioning at all. And then he became very powerful. saying that, you know, I was a very sick person. If this continued, he'd have to do something about it. At one point, I remember I was in total despair, and I remember just sliding down the wall because I kept thinking it was me. You know, something's happened to me and I'm hopeless. I thought I'd phone someone, and so I went and got some help. I went to a psychotherapist, and I remember the first day I sat with her and she said to me, "You're in a very, very abusive relationship." I realised then that it wasn't me. It was overwhelming. Someone to sit there and say, "Your husband is incredibly abusive."